Good morning, everyone. Today, we are going to be looking at the article, Becoming an Assistant Principal, Mapping Factors that Facilitate or Hinder Entering the Role by Rinat, Cohen and Chen, Schechter. Excellent article, highly recommend it. So we're going to be looking at that today. They start off by going over some of the things that people may or may not know about vice principals or assistant principals. Um, Mainly the fact that a lot of vice principals jump into the role and they say there's a rude surprise, when they get in there because they weren't prepared for some factors they didn't anticipate going in. So they're going to talk about some of the things that people can do going into the role to encourage success. So first one, your first variable in your success as a VP is principal support. Do you have it? Do you not have it? First off, emotional support. It can be very emotionally challenging and draining because you jump into this new role, you get removed from your peer group of teachers. It can be very lonely. Do you have a principal that is going to be there with you to kind of share those ups and downs? If they're supportive, it's very successful. It's quite a boon to you. If not, it can be very detrimental. Next, do you have support from the principal for staff and parents? So for example, if it's going to not take the staff very long to realize that if they don't like what you say, they can just go to the principal and get their own way. I personally have never had this happen with a staff member, but I have had it happen with parents. And it's very encouraging to know that if a parent is upset and say, well, I'm going to talk to the principal, I can say, yeah, you're more than willing to do that. That's more than free to do that. Because I know the principal will have my back and will support me. Now, in order for that to happen, we have to be on the same page, which is where the emotional support, where mentoring can come in. Thirdly, is there strong leadership from the principal? According to these authors, most of the authority of a VP comes from the strength and authority of the principal. So if you have a weak leader for a principal, you can't really borrow what they don't have to give you, which is where point number 2 comes in. If they know that if a parent or a staff member knows, hey, if I go complain to the principal, they're just going to override the VP, it's going to not be good for your success. Next up, staff variables. So what was the transition process like? Were you kind of the one everyone expected to take the job? Was there a competition amongst people to get the job and there might be some hurt feelings there? Did you come in from outside the school and maybe people apply from inside the school? So what is that process like? Obviously, you have no control over that, but that is a factor. Secondly, what were the circumstances of the previous VP leaving the job? Was it under some kind of a scandal? Was it under duress, like they didn't want to go with the principal, was butting heads with them? Or was it a peaceful, like a retirement, that sort of thing? Those are going to factor into how people perceive you, because if it was under duress, you might have a camp of teachers who don't like you specifically because you're not the previous VP. Next up is the VP variable. So that would be you yourself if that's in your position. So have they been trained for the role? Are they prepared for that role? There's a lot more interactions with parents. There's a lot more interactions with other teachers than they've ever been used to. Can they manage staff? I know that for me personally, as this is a commentary piece here, that was a big struggle for me because I was not used to being the boss, even though I don't like using that word with them because we're part of a team, but I do have to tell them to do stuff sometimes, like give up their prep to cover for a teacher who's out sick. That was a big struggle for me. A lot of the teachers are older than me. They have a lot more. They've been teaching at the school longer than I've been around. But I had to get past that. It's still a struggle, but it's something that can be and that's where the emotional part of it comes in. It can be very stressful. I experience more stress telling a teacher they have to do something I know they're not going to be excited to do than I do in having a confrontational meeting with a parent. Those aren't fun either, but I've gotten more comfortable in that role. And a lot of that came from having excellent mentorship from my own principal. They're prepared for emotional and social stress. So like the things that I just mentioned, meeting with irate parents, telling staff members things they don't want, losing that peer group, those can all be stressors. So making sure you're prepared for that, that you can handle that stress, because a lot of people don't want to do it. Recommendations. So how can we make things better? So this is where they close things off with some recommendations. Structured mentorship process, making sure that principals are mentoring new VPs coming in, or they also said a great way to get a mentorship is from another VP who is fairly new to the job, like someone who's only been doing it 3 or 4 years. That way they're still kind of, it's fresh in their minds, the struggles that they had. That can be very encouraging as well. So a mentorship process, I know me, for myself personally, I found mentorship to be huge. I had a fantastic headmaster and principal who I know were always quick to listen and offer advice and help me work through things if I had problems of my own. And that, I think, was the biggest factor in my own success. Continuing training for VP, making sure you're not just, a little bit of training in the front end and then you're all done, but you're continuing to read, have articles, listen to podcasts. I know that's another place where my principal and headmaster have come in really well, because they're constantly funneling new things for me to check out and look into to grow my own skill set. VP forums and associations, making sure that you're connecting with other VPs, people in the same boat as you, can be huge. Next up, construct a system for recruiting new VPs, making sure that you don't start looking the second you realize you need one. You should already be looking before you know you need one. Always kind of keeping that in mind, having a farm system, as we call it at our school. So when we need to hire a new teacher, we're going to have interviews, of course, but we already have a pretty good idea of who those people will be, who our best candidates are. And we've been grooming them for possible roles. And same thing with leadership roles, making sure, hey, that teacher would make a great team leader, that team lead would make a good VP, and making sure that you're giving them a little extra attention, and so they're a little bit better prepared when the time comes. Then training principals on how to mentor and train, making sure that these principals may have come up through a system where they didn't have any mentorship or training themselves, making sure they have the opportunity to learn how to do those things. So hopefully you guys read this article. I found it very helpful, and hopefully you will too.